Hi and welcome to this look at the 14-day weather prospects. Last week was bitterly cold across much of the UK, and in fact the lowest temperature since December 1995 was recorded at Braemar in Aberdeenshire, where minus 23 Celsius was reached on the 11th of February. Now in the last couple of days things have turned a lot milder right across the UK, and I'll just bring up a couple of charts which illustrate this quite well. Here we go. The one on the right is from Tuesday the 9th of February, and the blue shading under which the UK is showing a very cold upper level there. And then we had winds blowing from the east. You can see this really cold air over Scandinavia and Russia blowing towards the UK with high pressure centred to the north and over Greenland. Now jump forward a week to Tuesday the 16th of February, and what we can see is quite a very big change for the UK. It's not such a big change at the global level perhaps, but for the UK it's a huge change to our weather. The cold block, again shown by the blues and purples, has been pushed back eastwards, and we've now got this green shading over the UK, an area of low pressure which you can maybe see just centred to the west of Ireland. So we've got the winds coming in from the southwest across the Atlantic. It's a much milder picture, and pressure to the northwest of the UK over Greenland and Iceland has fallen. So it's a lot more typical for the UK. Is that the way things are going to stay or not? To help answer that question, I'll bring up a couple of animations. The first one shows upper air temperatures and surface pressure. It starts at 6 GMT on Tuesday the 16th of February. We can see the UK in the centre here with the green shading indicating relatively mild upper level air over us, and there's the purple and blues off to the east. If I just play it quite quickly so we can see what happens during the next few days. Here we go. So it's going through Wednesday, Thursday into Saturday the 20th of February. And at this point we can see the UK is still effectively under a west or southwesterly flow. We've got low pressure centred to the northwest. There's some very mild upper level air pushing up across parts of Spain, France into Germany on this particular sequence. That could make it to the UK. There's some uncertainty about that, something to look out for. But the broad picture is one of an Atlantic influence, so we can be expecting windy and wet conditions for at times during this period. I'll quickly bring up the pressure and precipitation sequence just to give a better idea of the rainfall profile. This starts at 09 GMT, Tuesday the 16th of February. Just take a look at what happens in the coming days. Here we go through Wednesday and Thursday. I'll just pause it here at 15 GMT, Thursday the 18th of February. At this point we can see a band of rain beginning to clear eastwards. The yellow and green shading on these charts indicates heavy rain, blue indicates somewhat lighter bursts of rain. Also, it's probably worth just pointing out that temperatures over Scotland during this period will be close to the average, be milder further south, but with somewhat lower temperatures in the north, it will probably be cold enough for sleet or snow over the Scottish mountains at times. So very typical for the middle part of February. Let's just continue and see how this evolves. I'm going to stop it just there, 15 GMT on Saturday the 20th of February. The broad scale picture is similar. Got bands of rain moving across the UK. It's very much Atlantic driven, this weather pattern. Winds coming in from the west for southwest. The heaviest rain on this particular chart shown just over Northern Ireland and Western Scotland. But by this point it's important not to pay too much attention to the actual specific details. Just to look at the bigger pattern in general. I'll just continue this to its end, and this is now at 12 GMT on Monday the 22nd of February. Again, not a great deal has changed. There is a possibility during this period from around about the Saturday the 20th, Sunday the 21st and Monday the 22nd that high pressure to the south will have more influence, and we could see some of that very, very mild upper level air which was shown on the previous sequence tracking over France and Germany. It may push into central and eastern parts of England during this period. If it does, daytime temperatures could reach 16, 17 or even 18 Celsius. Now, having said it, recent computer model runs have been tending to push the Atlantic influence further eastwards, and that really, really mild upper level air into further east into continental Europe. So it's possible that we will be staying under a less mild but wet pattern during the 20th, 21st and the 22nd. There's still some uncertainty about it. I mentioned that it's also likely to be windy as well as mild at times. I think it's probably worth just taking a quick look at that. This chart is for 21 GMT, Friday the 19th of February. It's showing maximum wind gust speed based on the GFS model. I wouldn't, again, pay too much attention to the specifics. It's really to give an indication of what we can expect at times during the coming days. It's showing winds of 60 miles an hour, even 70 miles per hour, just off to the west coast of Great Britain. Even inland, we're seeing 30s or 40 mile an hour gusts in much of the country. And I think it sets the theme for this period of weather, because, as I said earlier, we've often got this very brisk, vigorous west or southwesterly flow covering the UK, and so at times we can expect these sorts of wind speeds to be occurring. Therefore, gales are most likely in the west, exposed parts of the west, the northwest, the southwest, as is often the case, Northern Ireland. But even central and southern parts of England are going to be pretty windy at times. In terms of the amounts of rainfall, again, it's fairly much as is often the case when the winds are coming in from the Atlantic. The wettest parts of the United Kingdom are likely to be the west and the northwest, and on this chart you can see the 10-day accumulated rainfall totals based again on the GFS model. The highest values from the in the west of Scotland, where you can see 125, 145 millimetres of rain forecast in the next 10 days. Parts of Wales here, 77, 100, 104, 120 millimetres. And parts of northwest England, Northern Ireland, values of 70, 80, 90 millimetres. As you head further east, you can see the blue shading indicating lower values. Even saying that, there's still a significant amount of rainfall, if this is correct. So in the sort of London area, the home counties, you're looking at 30, 40 millimetres of rain in the next 10 days. So pretty wet, not exceptionally so. But given that the ground is already sodden in much of the country, there could well be some problems in places with flooding if this turns out to be correct. The reason for all the wet weather is areas of low pressure moving in from the Atlantic, and they have been driven in by the jet stream. Here's a forecast of its position on Tuesday the 23rd of February, and hopefully you can see the UK under this area of shading. Of course, the shading is indicating the path which the jet stream is taking. So we can see it's making a beeline for the United Kingdom and steering those rain-bearing areas of low pressure and weather fronts right across us. Until the last couple of days, there was a suggestion from computer models that the jet stream would be veering off to the northwest of the UK and allowing the area of high pressure over continental Europe to have more influence. And if that happened, central and eastern parts of Britain would be likely to have drier periods. It would also open the gate to that extremely mild flow of air from the southwest, which which I mentioned earlier, which is currently shown to be tracking over France and into Germany on this particular GFS model run. Is there a sign of things changing in the longer term? Well, to help answer that question, I'll bring up the 16-day ensemble plots. This one is for London and it shows upper air temperatures across the top. I'll not spend too long discussing those other than to say that for much of the forecast period they stay well above the 30-year average, and there is that potential for exceptionally mild conditions between the 21st and the 27th of February. If that happens, as I said, there is an outside chance that temperatures in southern or central England could locally reach 19 Celsius on 1 or 2 days. Really, it depends on things like cloud cover, rain, and the core of the upper air crossing the UK rather than heading off into continental Europe. In terms of precipitation, that's shown along the bottom. The thick green line, which you can see here, shows the forecast for the operational run. Now, the 10-day aggregate rainfall total chart, which I showed earlier in this presentation, was based upon that. And as you can see from here, it's one of the wettest runs in the ensemble. You can see this thick green line there towering above most of the others through this period from about the 23rd to the 27th of February. So the general pattern we're seeing here is one of the risk of rain in London, but probably most of the runs in the ensemble, remember there's 30 of them, are not suggesting as wet a picture in London and home counties area as the 10-day operational snapshot view, which I showed earlier, was. Also, if you look at what happens after the 27th of February as we go into the early part of March, it looks like turning drier. There's a clear signal there are fewer spikes, so perhaps high pressure is beginning to have more influence. Something I'll look at just in a moment, but let's jump across to Cardiff to see the 16-day plot. Here, again, we can see the operational run shown by a thick green line was a wet run compared to some of the ensemble models, ensemble runs. Nonetheless, the main thing to take on board is that it does look wetter in general than the London plot, and that is in line with what the 10-day snapshot was showing. The more western parts of the UK capture most of the rain as those disturbances, weather fronts, and move in from the Atlantic. The same is true for Belfast in Northern Ireland. Again, it's really bearing the brunt of much of the Atlantic onslaught, so you can see the potential for some significant rainfall, very wet conditions at times, at least during the second half of February, although at the very end and as we head into March, there's also a signal here for it to begin to turn drier. So what's going on with the increase in signal for drier weather during the early part of March? I think to help answer that, let's just quickly take a look at the surface level pressure forecasts. I've picked Birmingham, being sort of in central-ish location. Each column is showing the pressure forecast from all the runs in the GEFS ensemble model. One column represents 1 day, so we're starting on the 16th of February and we're finishing on the 3rd of March. Lower pressure is indicated by greens and blues. Higher pressure is indicated by yellows, orangey browns and pinky reds. So there's a clear signal there showing its hand, and that is for pressure to a trend upwards as we head towards the end of February and into the early part of March. In fact, by the 1st of March, we've got 65% of a run showing pressure between 1026 millibars to 1040 millibars. Comparable plots for locations to the north and south of Birmingham actually show a very similar pattern. What that suggests to me is that high pressure is likely to build close to or over the UK. Now, if that happens, will it have a knock-on impact on temperatures? I think to help answer that, I'll bring up the 16-day data table showing 2 metre maximum forecast temperatures for Birmingham. Once again, each column represents an individual day, and we're starting on Tuesday the 16th of February, at which point 100% of the runs are in this light green bucket, which is forecasting values of 6 to 10 Celsius. By the 20th, 77% of the runs move into the next category up, which is 11 Celsius to 15 Celsius. And that's shown by the yellow. Very mild indeed at this point. Now, by the end of February and into the early part of March, the columns start to contain some darker greens and even a little bit of blue shading. The darker greens indicate the range of 1 Celsius to 5 Celsius, so we've got 29% of the runs there on Monday the 1st of March. The blues indicate the really cold stuff, so -8 Celsius to 0 Celsius. Remember, these are the 2 metre temperatures, so what we experience down at the ground level, and the forecast maximums during the day. But they are in the blues are in an extremely small minority at the moment. For that scenario to transpire, I think what would need to happen is for the high pressure area not to be building across the UK, but to be centred further north over Greenland again, or Iceland, Scandinavia, and that would allow the really cold air, which has been pushed back into continental Europe, to return westwards and affect the UK's weather like it did during the second week of February. So this is suggesting that's not entirely out of the question. It's not a likely scenario in late February or the beginning of March. Much more favoured currently is for high pressure to be centred somewhere close to the UK. That would lead to fairly quiet conditions, temperatures dipping down during the day, shown by those darker green columns becoming bigger. So in other words, we'd be probably losing the really mild conditions. The other point to bear in mind with high pressure is that the risk of nighttime frost and fog would be returning. So there would be a different feel to the weather, but it still wouldn't be the really cold pattern that we had during the second week of February. Okay, to summarise all of that, week 1 is going to be unsettled. All parts of the UK have wet and windy periods. The strongest winds and the highest rainfall totals are expected to be in the west. It's often going to be mild in the south, potentially very mild. In the north, temperatures will at times be closer to the average, and that leads to the possibility of mountain snow. Week 2 begins unsettled and mostly mild. Later on in the period, it may begin to turn drier as high pressure builds close to or over the UK. If that happens, there will be an increase in risk of nighttime fog and possibly frost. At the moment, it doesn't look like the extremely cold weather that we experienced during the second week of February is going to be returning from the east, but the possibility at this stage is not entirely discounted. Okay, so thank you very much for watching the forecast. That's about it. But if you enjoyed it, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Cheers now. Bye.